Hey everybody, my name is Miles and welcome back to my traffic surfing safety series for several super spicy skaters. Today we'll be talking about stopping. I bet you wish I'd stopped, don't you? Anyway, I'm just getting started. Stopping. This is primarily talking about stopping in emergency situations. And like benefits, stepped on a thing. Benefits and downsides of some of the different types of stopping, best applications for them, and really, I guess, giving more tools to allow you to be more in control when, of course, the need inevitably arises for you to stop, because that'd be really weird if you could skate without ever stopping. I guess if you're either in a half pipe or an endless frictionless environment. But anyway, so first and foremost, I want to say while you are in traffic, particularly navigating the Broadway Bomb, don't slide to stop. Right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's the whole thing of having safety margins and accounting for as many variables as possible. Now, I love to slide. I think it's fun, doing my thing, whatever. But one of the big things with the Broadway Bomb, especially that I've noticed, is, the whole thing is 8 miles long and it has been repaved so many times. There are so many different types of pavement throughout the whole thing. So each one of those different types of pavements has a different coefficient of friction. So you might be going down the street, you do a slide perfectly in one place, and it's that good pavement, like the old school gray top that's been around for 40 years, and it's it's my favorite to slide on. Anyway, so you stop on that, it's all well and good. You go 50 feet down the road, and then it's all blacktop. And then you try to do the same slide, and then you have much more grip between your wheels and the floor. So, if you put the same amount of energy in, you're not going to break the tail out properly, you're kicking your board out, you're going to be you'll have a one-way ticket to High Side City, son. Let's get into it. First, foot braking. First thing that we all learn how to do when we skate. First way to learn how to stop. You just put your foot down, you drag it, it's easy, it's predictable, you know what's gonna happen, you put your foot down, you drag it, you stop, right? One of the reasons why it's so easy to do is because it's a very stable position, it's very predictable, it allows you to really know what's going on with your body and just, kind of get into a predictable position and just, drag it out, and, you pretty much know what's gonna happen, right? Also, I think it's really good for high-speed applications. When you're foot braking, it's pretty much the only time that I foot brake is if I'm going over 30 miles an hour or so, and I'll get into that in a moment. But because you can just put your foot down, it doesn't really matter how fast you're going. You just put your foot down and you're good, it's really good for fine adjustments. That's one of the things that I like about foot braking, but I don't do it too often. With those high speed applications or fine adjustments, you can adjust the amount of pressure that you have on the floor. However, my preferred method is reverse pushing, and I'll go into that in a second. But with foot braking, it is slow to stop, right? The reason why cars have ABS, which is anti-lock braking system. I guess the way that it works is, the brake caliper squeezes on the rotor really, really quickly. It just pulses over and over again so that it doesn't grab on, squeeze it, lock that up, and then make the tire drag along the floor. Once something is dragging, instead of working on static friction, it's working on kinetic friction. And kinetic friction always has a lower resistance than static friction does. So like, if you try this, if you put your hands together or put your hands on a surface, if you push them together and start sliding them apart, it takes a lot of energy to get it moving, but once it does, it slips and it goes. It's the same thing if you put it on a table, it's the same thing that happens to your board. It's the same thing with your shoe on the ground. One thing, speaking of shoe on the ground, you destroy your shoes so quickly if you're foot braking. The one thing I'd say about that is like, whenever I do it, instead of just doing my heel or a flat foot, I try to apply a little bit more force to the arch of my foot. Actually, it sounds a little bit strange and it's a very awkward thing to do, but that allows me to get the most braking pressure with the freshest rubber onto the ground. Lastly, with that, floor time. Right? What do I mean by that? Because your foot is on the floor for so long, if you are traveling 10 miles an hour, then you will if you're traveling 10 miles an hour, you're going to cover 14.6 feet every single second, right? I believe that's 4.4 meters per second for anybody across the pond who's listening. Anyway, that's a lot of distance to be covering in a short amount of time, and that's only 10 miles an hour. The way that the road can change in that short amount of time is ridiculous. You can, change of pavements, go to gravel, go to sand, hit one of those tiny little antifreeze patches, or like a little fluid that comes from the bottom of the car, and that right there slips, you have no more braking force, right? So you lose all your braking, and it's like you need to stop, and you wind up, in a situation where, well, I guess where you really don't want to be. Because, if you're stopping, usually there's a good reason for it. Going on to my preferred method of stopping, I call it, reverse pushing, or really mathematically speaking, it would be inverse pushing. It's not like I'm pushing backwards, but instead of, hitting my foot to the floor and pushing myself out of it, I put my foot up and absorb the force into my body, right? Think about it, very much by the same principles of rolling to fall, bracing my body, getting myself stable, and, balancing out and learning to absorb those forces into my leg. I really like that because it does work on the principle of ABS, of like, not having my shoe lock up on the floor. It means that I have complete control over everything that I'm doing, and it's I have a lack of floor time, because if I need to foot brake, if I need to do this, I only need that much space. I only need just a little place, and I say, this is where I'm going to put my foot, that's where I'm going to stop. Done. All right? So it really minimizes my exposure to changes in the environment. Because of that, I think it's really predictable as well, just because, I have that layer of control. Last thing, it's dynamic. What do I mean by that? Because I have one foot on the board that's really stable, and I have the other foot that I pop to the floor and bring back up. When my foot is in the air, that gives me options, right? It gives me options, and it gives me options very quickly. If I'm foot braking, I have more weight off of the board, off to the side, and if I want to do something else, I need to lift my foot up, bring it back to the board, and then adjust my weight. If I'm doing this, if I pop down, once I have my foot back up in the air, I can go either way. That I can start to adjust my weight, bring my foot back onto the board, and go out and around. Or I can go back and brake again, or if I need to, I'm ready to run off, because my foot is already up there, I like to have as many options as possible. Downsides of it, if you don't know how to do it properly, if your braking mechanism is not properly calibrated, then you can hurt your knees or your feet or your hips. So I really suggest practicing it at lower speeds and just like feeling the rhythm and learning how to get it like that. Usually the biggest reason that it hurts your feet is either too much of an ankle and absorbing the force too hard into your heel, or you have poorly fitting shoes and your foot, your toes slide up into the front and you get your toes banged up into the front of in the front of the shoes. Other downside, it's for low speeds only, relativistically speaking. I would say it's only really good for under 25 to 30 miles an hour or so. Any more than that, it is not, it's not really physically possible for you to do this. It's just too much force in your body. So with that, I like to do a little bit of foot braking first, scrub off a little speed, and then once I feel a little bit more comfortable, start absorbing the force into my body in that way. Lastly, running off. Of course, it's only for emergency situations, and it is phenomenal in emergency situations because, going back to the things that I've discussed in the two previous examples, it is the fastest way to stop, because once you remove yourself from the board and you take a couple of steps, that is all static friction into both feet, right? So you have a high surface area, both feet, so you're doubling the amount of surface area that you have to stop, as opposed to reverse pushing or foot braking. And you're not on the board. You're not you're not trying to brake on one foot and have rollers on the other. With this technique, of course, I do recommend stepping over the front of the board initially and giving just a little touch to have it kind of pop behind you. If you fully kick it behind you, you got some problems. But to just step off the front, that means you can get in front of the board, put all of your force into stopping, and then catch your board back under your foot as it arrives back beneath you. So yeah, it's phenomenal in emergency situations, and it get you stopped really quickly. Downsides, you are not entirely in control, right? If you lose your board, that is not good. If you can't react quickly to the situation, it's not really good. It interrupts the flow of everything completely, and really when I say not in control, it means you're not in control of your board for 1 second, and of course, high priorities there. You don't want to have your board floating around loose in traffic. But in order to preserve your own life or somebody else's life, or prevent injury, the board is meaningless, right? Second, it's hard on your joints. You have all the force of that impact, straight in your body, going all into stopping. It's another one of those things that I would definitely suggest practicing. It can be learned like reverse pushing, but it can be really hard on your joints. But same thing, better to hurt your knees than hurt your everything. And lastly, it's only really good for going under 20 miles an hour or so, because it's just not physically possible for a human being to. I should have looked it up and saw how fast Usain Bolt did the 100. I think at the end he was going 21 miles an hour, but even still, hey, Usain, if you're watching this, good on you. You can stop around there, but anybody else, I don't recommend trying to run over 20 miles an hour. At that point, you bail off the board, and you see a lot of this happens to people in like speed wobble videos. If they're standing upright, they start wobbling, they pop off, they try to run out, and just go, face first down into the ground, So I'd say it's really only good for low speeds. Putting these together, it's phenomenal. Having these tools in your toolkit can make it so you can stop safely under any situations. Coming down from high speed, you start off with a little foot braking, absorb the force to reverse pushing, and, jump off if you have to. But, I do, absolutely 99% of my stopping with reverse pushing. Anyway, I hope that this is helpful for you guys, and stop by soon. Bye.